I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. This is a channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. I was looking through my shelves the other day and I was looking out for books that I either haven't read or have read but not in a really long time, and it's a series where I want to get to the end, so I potentially have to do a reread. Anyway, I was looking through my shelves and I stumbled across just the Shadowhunter world. I basically have a whole shelf on my bookshelves dedicated to the Shadowhunter books, and by that I mean the first 6 in the Mortal Instruments and then the 3 in the Infernal Devices, and then I think Lady Midnight as well. I realized that whilst I've read the entire Mortal Instruments, I watched the movie, I watched the TV show, I've read one book in the Infernal Devices and I haven't read anything else in the Shadowhunter world, and I thought, everybody always gets so hyped up when new releases come out. I think there was a new one just recently and I never know what anybody's talking about because it's a world I understand but not a world I'm part of. I'm going to undertake a project where I read in increments the entire Shadowhunter world and I vlog my experience doing it. So I'm going to be reading everything in publication order because I want to have the same experience as the people who have been part of this world since the beginning. So starting this off, I'm going to be reading City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is a book I've read quite a number of times, but I am going to read you the blurb because I always get it wrong, and it is: Clary Frey is seeing things, vampires in Brooklyn and werewolves in Manhattan. Irresistibly drawn to the Shadowhunters, a secret cadre of warriors dedicated to ridding the world of demons, Clary encounters the dark side of New York City and the dangers of forbidden love. This is definitely going to be a spoilery series as I talk about all of the books that I'm reading, but this is going to be the first one. I'm about 50% in so far and I am enjoying it. It's definitely reading slower because I kind of know everything that's happening because I've read it quite a few times, so it does feel like rereading things that I already know about, but it also feels something I've been saying a lot recently, which is very reminiscent of its time, in that the humor and the sarcasm and everything that is very present in this book is very much something that I would have absolutely lost my shit rolling on the floor laughing at when I was like 15, 16, but now that I'm reading it, it just feels a bit cringy. I'm still enjoying it, but it just feels really strange. I am liking at the beginning of this book that you can tell that Clary is really out of her depth, very confused, and very much being brought along into this world that she doesn't understand and challenging it because it is so different from what she believes it to be right and to be okay, especially when it comes to the fact that she's made this realization that Alec is gay, and also the fact that she doesn't seem to really understand why they inherently hate the Downworlders or why they inherently hate demons, and she challenges that and asks, is there not a chance that some of these people could be good, that we should be supporting some of these people? Why are we bringing about this fake accord sorts of situation if we really don't believe that they're equal to us? If we're looking down on them, then why are we pretending to be allies? So she really does challenge the world, and I do like that because it offers this really nice outside perspective on what is a very rooted in tradition world. The one thing I'm not loving at the moment is that the chapters are so long, like really long, and I am enjoying the fact that that is less of a thing these days. Chapters tend to be shorter these days to deal with like people's lower attention span, but it is an investment each chapter, like 20 pages or something worth of investment. Another thing that I kind of find weird is that I think the first time I read this book, I loved Simon. I thought he was super cute and fun. I thought he was a great friend and that would have been a super cute romance. I definitely rooted for him, but reading this now, he just kind of seems like a dick. Like, the things that he does to provoke Jace and to sort of judge Clary and judge the world that he's now become a part of, which, by the way, I don't understand why they keep involving him in things when, like, he's got no need to be involved in things. He just keeps appearing. But anyway, he's just been a bit of a dick. He's just really irritating me. Anyway, as for what I'm up to at the moment, I'm up to the part where Clary has found out, obviously, about the world. She's met Jace, Isabel, Alec. She's realized that Alec is potentially in love with Jace. Simon is very much part of this world as well. He's learning things, I guess, at the same time as Clary, and Clary has realized that there is a block in her mind which is stopping her from, one, being able to sort of see the world as it is, and two, unlocking the memories that she has of this world in the past. So she's now found out that Magnus Bane is potentially linked to this block being put in her mind, so she's going to his party in order to find out how he's linked, see if he can get it removed. He is the High Warlock of Brooklyn, so naturally everybody's really confused about how Clary is related to him. Also, what has happened so far is Clary's found out about her mother's own history, so her mother being a Shadowhunter. She's found out about her father being Valentine and the Circle, this sort of organization that he created in order to take down the Downworld, and there are definitely hints at the moment being dropped to the fact that Valentine might still be alive. So yeah, that's kind of everything going on at the moment. I don't really have any plans for today. It is Sunday, so I am literally just gonna get straight back into this and get some reading done, and I will update you when I finish this book. But what I'm also planning to do is, as I finish each of these books, I want to go and watch the sort of equivalent on the TV show, and I thought it just might be fun to do a bit of a rewatch of that. It's not the most amazing show. I know the acting's not amazing, like it's not great, but it's kind of fun to see the scenes that I'm reading about reenacted in sort of real life. So I'm gonna read this book and then I'm gonna watch a couple episodes of the TV show and maybe litter in a few thoughts of that as well throughout this vlog. I don't know, just a thought. But anyway, that's my plans. No other plans today, so I'm gonna get back to reading and I will update you in a bit with my thoughts. While I'm on my lunch break, it is Monday now, I thought I would give you a quick update on where I'm at with my Shadowhunter reread project, and that is to say that I have finished the first book, City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I gave this one 3 stars because I think a lot of this was a nostalgia read for me. It was a lot of fun to read for the memories, but I didn't particularly enjoy reading it. Sorry if that's kind of confusing. I thought the characters were fine. I definitely thought they read very, very young, and I think I mentioned that in my last clip, where the humor was definitely something that 15-year-old me would have thought was absolutely killer, hilarious, sarcastic, amazing. But now that I'm reading this as a 25-year-old, it's definitely not got that same charm to it that it did back in the day, and it hasn't aged as well, I guess. I really do think the characters are well built in this story. They're really rounded out well. You get a really good understanding of their motivations, and I like the fact that Clary represents this sort of outside force coming in to really shake things up in the Shadowhunter world and question things that they've always thought are okay, especially like Alex's sexuality, this sort of hate for downworlders that's kind of bred into these kids, like all these sorts of things. She comes in and she questions it, and I like that she represents that. But I also do wonder with these characters, because they are acting quite old and quite mature, I guess, for their age, in that, you know, they're dealing with really, really complicated issues. And I get that part of this is that, you know, these guys do grow up really, really young. Sorry, my lighting just got really weird. I get that part of this book is the fact that, you know, these characters grow up really, really young, so they are going to be in situations where they are dealing with very, very adult issues, but it still feels very, very jarring reading about kids coming up with battle strategy in that. Like, this girl is 15 years old, Jace is 17, like they're so young. But I guess on the flip side of that, what I did like is that they did still show their immaturity and their naivety. Like, you would have those outbursts and those big moments where, you know, they've just done something very adult, but then they come back to their own, they're in a calm setting, and then they have a very childlike outburst or a very petty sort of argument with someone. So I did like the way it sort of towed the line between the sort of adult side of things and then the childlike side of things. But they still didn't read like 15-year-olds. I think in terms of atmosphere, I could definitely still picture the settings and the characters and everything, but I relate a lot of that more to the fact that I've seen the TV show and the movie than I do to the sort of writing style, I guess, of being able to really evoke that imagery. So I did rate atmosphere kind of low because it didn't really offer its own sort of original thing in my mind, and maybe that's because I've watched a TV show and I've ruined it for myself, and also because I didn't really feel that tension I think that I was supposed to feel. And again, maybe that's because this is a reread and I knew what's going to happen, but like there were those big scenes and those moments where I didn't fully remember what was going to happen next and how it was going to resolve itself, like the battle scene at Renwick's when you sort of find out that maybe Clary and Jace are related, which we're not even going to go into because I'm not willing to touch on the whole incest romance thing that Cassandra Clare seems to have going in multiple books. But anyway, separately to that, in that Renwick scene, I didn't really remember how that was going to resolve itself, but I still didn't feel the tension. I thought the writing was fine. Again, I felt like it read young sometimes in terms of the jokes and the immaturity of some of the characters, but also read weirdly sometimes, and the characters acted older than 15-year-olds. It's a really strange complex to try and describe. The pacing was fine, the plot was fine. I think the way it developed throughout the story was really, really well done. though I will admit that I think Clary and Simon jumped into the whole Shadowhunter world a little too easily. Like, there wasn't as much of a question that all of a sudden vampires and werewolves exist. They kind of just accepted it and moved on. But I guess maybe that's an element of the 15-year-old immaturity. You're more able and willing to believe the fantastical than potentially an adult would. As for logic, I do not understand the logic of this at all, why 15-year-olds are dealing with the issues that they are dealing with and why they are being sent into battle and everything like that, and seem to have been sent into battle for multiple years. Like, have these guys been battling demons since they were 12? Because that is just strange. I don't understand the logic of them having to deal with these really, really major issues and these battles between adults as well. Like, they are dealing with an adult, Valentine, who is a full-grown man, and they're expected to hold their own against him. Like, I don't understand how that is a thing. I don't understand the logic behind that, but as for the magic, the world, and everything like that, it's very, very easy to understand. I understand the whole runes and the system there and the sort of bleeding in of, or trickling in, I guess, of Clary's abilities and how that's being weaved in a little bit, which I appreciate, but I would have appreciated at least one moment where these kids are like, maybe we should call our parents. So yeah, I gave this book 3 stars. I think it did feel like a bit of a slog for me because I did know a lot of what was happening and what was going to happen next, and I know these characters so well because I've read this so many times. So I'm hoping that as I get to the newer stuff, it'll be a bit more exciting, but that's this book. I have now jumped into the second book, which is City of Ash. And by the way, I noticed a formatting change. All the font in the book is all different to the previous book, which was a bit strange, didn't love. So like the font in the previous book was that, and then the font in this book is like that. So it's very different, and I've just lost my page, which is very irritating. I found it again. But yeah, so jumped into this, dealing with the aftermath of the previous book, City of Bones, where Jace and Clary find out that potentially they're related, but they still have very, very unresolved romantic feelings for each other. So at the start of this book, I think it's been about a couple of weeks and they are very much avoiding each other. Clary's trying to move on with her life with Simon, and Simon's just made a first move. He seems to be a bit more confident ever since he'd had the time at the vampire's lair, which of course I know what that means, but they obviously don't yet. Jace has just had a confrontation with Maris Lightwood, who is the mother of Alec and Isabel, and she's definitely made it clear to him that he's not welcome anymore now that she's found out his true parentage, and he's now disappeared. So that's what I'm up to in this book. So definitely the immaturity is coming through loud and strong, avoiding your problems and disappearing. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. We're getting lots and lots of different changes in perspective in these first couple chapters, which I really like because it's showing like from all the different people involved and very small snippets, I guess, of the aftermath of what happened in the previous book. And it is providing this atmosphere in a very sort of disjointed kind of way that I like because it fits well with what these characters are feeling. But yeah, that's the update on City of Ashes. As for the TV show update, I've watched like 3 or 4 episodes now, and I had to stop last night because it was so bad. Like I love the show for nostalgia purposes and because it's bringing to life elements of Shadowhunters that I really love, but it's so bad. Like, I don't like the fact that you like stab a demon with your little knifey thing and it just like evaporates into orange sparks of something, and that happens to like vampires and everything as well. So I don't like that they just sort of like sparkle and disappear because that's not at all realistic. And then I don't like how with the stellae you don't draw the rune onto yourself, you just like hover the stellae over your arm and the pre-existing rune, and then that's just, it will just reappear on your arm. Because imagine like all the different runes these people must have carved on their bodies over time. They must be like covered, and so you have to like always remember where your rune is so that you can do it rather than just sort of painting a new one. But anyway, I thought that was strange. And the last thing that I think is absolutely hilarious is whenever Clary has a moment where she's like worried someone's gone missing, or she's trying to find someone, or she's yelling someone's name to try and get their attention, she does it really short and clipped. So it's like, for example, in the scene where Simon's kidnapped by the vampires, I would expect the sort of end closing scene there to be her being like, Simon! Like a little bit more elongated, but she's just like, Simon! 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 It just sounds so strange, and it's just really weird. And she does that with every single person as well. So every time she gets worried and yells out someone's name, it just makes me laugh. Jace isn't quite as suave or anything, I guess, as I would imagine him to be. I think the guy who played Jace in the movie was a lot better at Jace than this guy is. And I liked that Jace had an English accent in the movie, and I don't like that he's American in the TV show. I think he came across quite well English. I know it's not consistent with the book or anything, but he delivered, I think, that humor really, really well as an English man, because it's a very English humor. It's sarcastic, it's witty, it's like smart humor. So I think I associate that with an English accent. I would have appreciated it more if it was the English accent. It would have come across more naturally. Anyway, that's where I'm up to in the TV show. It's really bad, but I'm enjoying it, and I cannot wait to sort of see how it diverges from the book even more as the series goes on, because in this first season it's staying fairly close to the book, but I think in future seasons it's just fully like it goes off in its own direction. So that's gonna be fun to watch happen. But yeah, that is everything that I have been reading, doing, watching at the moment. I'm going to get back to work and then finish off City of Ashes tonight. Maybe watch another episode of the TV show if I have time after finishing reading, and then I will get back to you later today or probably tomorrow. It has been, I think, like a week or so since I last updated you guys on this vlog, because it's been absolutely mad at work, at life, at everything lately. Even today, I am thoroughly exhausted because I had a big networking event yesterday that lasted the whole day, and I didn't even wake up till like 11:30 this morning because of just how tired I was when I got home. I didn't get home till like midnight, and it's just, man, it was insane. But it's been a very, very busy week leading up to that event, and so my reading has naturally gone down the toilet, but I'm very, very glad to say that I finished the second book in this big reread project that I'm doing, and that is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I gave this book 2.5 stars, so didn't love it as much as I'm sure the first time that I read this. I think definitely this was a very character-focused book, in that it was all about getting the characters in the story to the point where they need to be in order for the third book to make sense, to happen, all the elements in the third book to come together. So for Clary, that was sort of unlocking her badass Shadowhunter self and her ability to write these new runes. For Jace, it was just more emotional family trauma and figuring out his history and his family and where he's come from. For Alec, it was accepting his sexuality finally. For Isabel, I don't really know what it was for Isabel. I guess she was just becoming a more well-rounded person. And then for Simon, it's obviously getting turned into a vampire. The Inquisitor was obviously a very, very clear villain in this story, and I liked that she was the clear villain outside of Valentine, that there was another element added into there rather than just spending 3 books hating this one dude and then not really doing anything about it. But I didn't fully understand the Inquisitor. Like, I get that she is incredibly hurt and heartbroken and really like vengeful for what happened to her son and the association that has with Valentine, and she seems to have directed all of that at Jace, which I totally get because Jace is a connection to Valentine. It's an easy route for her to channel her hate, but I didn't understand how a grown-ass woman was able to justify in her own mind redirecting, reframing, and rewriting everything that was happening, every bad thing that was happening in the story, to somehow make it Jace's fault. And then she's being positioned this entire novel as a lady who is very, very clear in her convictions, but then when she finds out that she's been wrong basically this entire time, all of a sudden she puts her life at risk in order to protect Jace. Like, she literally throws herself in front of a demon that's about to kill Jace. So I don't get how she just does this complete 180, and also how she's able to justify all her actions in the first place. I thought the whole Inquisitor plotline in this story was just a little bit strange. There was just way, way, way too much weight placed or emphasis placed on this sort of relationship between the Inquisitor and Jace, and the threads of questions that were scattered throughout, and the hints and the obvious foreshadowing I think that was happening, knowing now what Jace's connection to Valentine actually is. There was a lot of foreshadowing throughout this book, sort of hinting to that. The other thing that I will mention about this book is that I know probably the first time I read this, Jace and Clary, I would have really been rooting for them to get together, so I probably would have been less bothered by the sort of blatant incest, I guess, that is happening in this story. And not saying that when I first read this I was supportive of that at all, because I obviously was not, but in the back of my mind I'd always had the thought like, oh my god, something has to happen that tells them that they're not actually related. Whereas this time when I'm reading it, I'm just flat out uncomfortable. Like, I'm just really uncomfortable reading this story because it is two kids who at different points in the story are fully campaigning to just forget the fact that they're blood related and just go for it, just plow ahead with their relationship. And these are kids, I get that, but they are old enough to know that what they're campaigning for, I guess, isn't okay. Like, you don't date your sister, just like flat. Like, you don't date your sibling. Like, sorry, I can't support that this time, and it's really creeping me out in this story. And it's really creeping me out that everyone around them not only seems to be aware of it, but is like not supportive of it, but like acknowledges it and goes, oh, you know, I know that these two people love each other and that's just a really intense bond that they have. Like Simon, even when he's like talking to Clary about how he wants to be with her, he's like, I know you love Jace. And it's like, guys, stop talking about it because it's really weird. Like, I don't want to hear about it. But anyway, I think that's a really strange element of this story. And I think the thing that I'm not loving about this first trilogy is that that sort of sibling plot line is really stretched out. And I would have liked it for it to be sort of wrapped up a little bit faster, so it removes a lot of the ick feeling in this story. As for the rest of my review, I think the writing was fine. I think it was clear and it sent the message across, which was great, but it wasn't anything beautiful, and there were a few moments of dialogue that I thought were very awkwardly placed. It was definitely written very young. It was very sort of the young end of a YA, and I think even times when you'd have adults speaking and that sort of stuff, it was clear that even the adults sounded quite young, but I did like that the writing style fit with the age of the characters that we're following, because it gave that level of immaturity and that level of sort of emotional instability that comes with being like a 15-year-old, you know, Clary mentioning how she always like feels like she's gonna cry. Like, it may sound stupid when I'm thinking about it, but when I remember that they're 15 years old, I'm like, you know what, to be honest, I was probably on the edge of tears a lot when I was 15, because you're just, everything is going haywire in your body. So I like that that realness is there, and I like that the writing style fits with the age of the characters, even if it's not a sort of writing style that I particularly mesh with overly well. Like I said, this is the character book, so nothing really happens in this until the very end in terms of plot, but I will admit that I was on the edge of my seat for that last battle scene, even though I knew kind of how it was going to end. I didn't remember all the elements of it, so I was very much unable to put this book down until we got to the very end of that scene. So that last section of the book was very difficult for me to stop reading through. So yeah, 2.5 stars, not amazing, sitting right in the middle of the road. And now I'm picking up the next book, which is going to be City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. Currently, I am 104 pages in. So what's happening in this book at the moment is, at the end of the previous book, Clary is visited by a strange woman that she doesn't recognize, who says that she knows how to wake up her mother. And Clary is told that she has to travel to Idris, which is the sort of home of the Shadowhunters, in order to find a wizard by the name of Ragnarfell, warlock I should say, by the name of Ragnarfell, and apparently he knows how to break the spell that has her mother unconscious, basically. So Clary is determined to travel to Idris in order to find this warlock and break this spell, but Jace and everyone are trying to stop that from happening because they know that Valentine has 2 of the mortal instruments and the third one is in Idris, so they know that that's where he's going to be. Yeah, nothing else is happening other than just they've all traveled to Idris and now they're all figuring out what they're going to do while they're there and how they're going to get connected with this warlock. But yeah, I am going to keep reading this and I'll update you either halfway through or at the end. I haven't decided yet. This one is a longer one, so maybe halfway through. In terms of life, as I said, this last week has been absolutely manic. I am absolutely exhausted now. If you can't tell, like I feel like my eyes are shutting because I'm so tired. But this weekend is going to be a fun weekend because so today's Saturday and it's the end of the day. The lighting's obviously gone to shit, so that's why I'm not well lit. But it's the end of the day on Saturday. I've just spent the whole day at Waterstones, which is a new tradition of mine that like every weekend when I can, I go to Waterstones, I sit in the cafe and I read and I drink chai lattes and all these sorts of things. And honestly, it's really lovely and it's really relaxing. I did that today, and then as for tomorrow, I'm going to be going to visit Ben's mum and and dad because it is a Mother's Day in the UK tomorrow. So I'm gonna go visit them because my own family is in Australia, and I think we're just going for lunch or something. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it should be a nice sort of relaxing, easy breezy day. So yeah, easy chill weekend, and then I've got the whole week off work next week, which I'm super excited for because there's a ton of content ideas that I have that I need to take time to film, and that's my plan for next week, is just to get all of them filmed. I think by the time this video comes out, you will have seen literally all of that sort of stuff, because I am considering like waiting to post this video until I've got further along in the series and know that I'm actually dedicated to completing this project. So yeah, that will all have been done, so do check it out. I'll link it all down below if I remember, but yeah, that's the plan. So I am going to get back to this book, turn off this camera because my lighting is horrible, and hopefully try not to fall asleep while I read. So I'll see you in a bit. Hey, it is Monday. It is the first day of this big week-long week off that I've booked for myself. I've booked basically this entire week off because mental health break, because I have a bunch of video ideas that I want to be doing, and all sorts of other reasons, and I am so excited to get stuck into it. But before I start my whole week off, which I'm going to sort of catalog in a series of videos which will be coming very soon, I just wanted to update you on where I'm at with the latest read in my Shadowhunter project thing that I'm undertaking, and that is of course City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. I am now up to part 2, and that is page 209, and I think I'm definitely enjoying this book a lot more than the previous 2 books, because the first 2 was a lot of setup. I'd read that book the most, I think, out of the rest of the series, like the most number of times. The second book was definitely very middle ground, just like getting everybody to where they need to be in order for this third book to make sense. It was very slow moving, whereas this one is kicking things right off. I think it's very fast paced. I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot of new characters that we're meeting, such as Sebastian Varlac, who is the cousin, I believe, of Aline Penhallow, who is the family that the Lightwoods and Jace are staying with while they're visiting Idris. So we're getting really beautiful descriptions of this glass city. We're getting fun interactions with this new family. We're definitely getting a bit of conflict between Jace and Clary, because Jace is trying to move on with Aline. Clary sort of tried to move on with Sebastian, and obviously that creates a conflict between them. A conflict I don't appreciate, because obviously they are still siblings, and they just had a full-on makeout session on the page. I'm like, guys, you're still siblings. So I'm hoping the big realization that they're not siblings anymore happens really soon, because it is still creeping me out. I'm liking that I got a bit of time with Alec as well to really explore his feelings for Magnus and explore him accepting his feelings for Magnus, and then getting time with Simon as well, who's obviously been imprisoned by the Inquisitor in Idris, because the Inquisitor wants to understand how Simon exists, how Simon is a daylighter, how he's able to walk in the sun, and I guess he wants to understand how to stop it from ever happening again, because that would make the vampires an even more real threat than they already are. So spending that time with Simon, learning more about himself, his sort of vampire abilities. He's speaking with someone in the jail, learning a lot more about Shadowhunter history, I think, than he'd ever known before. So he's getting a greater understanding of just exactly what's at play. And it's creating this interesting conflict within him, because he's finally sort of building this relationship with Jace and the Lightwoods and everything by not actually spending time with them, but by understanding their circumstances and why they are the way they are. So I'm liking that is actually really being delved into. Yeah, I'm liking this one a lot more. There's a lot more going on. That's where I'm up to at the moment in this book. As for my plans at the moment, I am literally just going to go out for the entire day. Probably gonna get absolutely no reading done today, because I'm determined to go and do all the things that I just never got around to doing doing and haven't gotten around to doing. But yeah, that is my plan for today. So I will see you in a bit once I've actually finished this book. I think I might finish this before I update you guys again because I'm, you know, just under 50% now. And then we'll probably close up this vlog and I'll open up a new one for the Infernal Devices series, I think is the second one. So yeah, that'll be the next thing that I'm reading after these first 3 books. And we have reached the end. This is the end of this first Shadowhunter read project, catch up with the series experience that I am doing at the moment. I have just finished City of Glass and I gave it 3.5 stars. I think I mentioned previously, I do like this one a lot more than the previous 2 books in the series, and I think that that is because, one, the previous 2 books in the series I've read quite a number more times than I've read this book. So it felt very, very like I know all this, and you know, I feel like when you're reading or when you're rereading a book, you want it to be kind of action-packed and the plot to really keep you moving if that's what you originally loved about the series, which is what I loved for me. So reading those sort of character forming sections of the story, I got very bored very quickly because I knew all of this sort of stuff and I didn't really need to rehash everything that characters had gone through. Honestly, I could have started with this book and been totally fine. But yeah, with this book, I think after the growth and the amount of time spent building up the sort of core cast of characters in the previous book, I really think that Cassandra Clare did a really good job of introducing new characters in this story in order to keep things interesting, and the way she sort of fleshed them out and went into detail about them in order to make them fit in with the core cast and fit their motives in with the way the story was going forward was really, really well done. Sebastian especially was sort of the focus of building out those new characters, and then Amethyst as well, which is Luke's sister. Obviously both on very, very opposing sides of the respective worlds, but both playing a very, very core role in the story. And Sebastian especially had this really, really eerie, creepy feeling about him, which I really, really liked considering how his character kind of develops through the story. As for the development of the core cast, I think everything was kind of covered in the previous book, so they didn't really need to move or change much, but I did like that finally Clary and Jace's relationship evolved towards the end of this book, and the circumstances of their relationship changed so that they were no longer brother and sister. So it made the whole thing feel really a lot less creepy once that reveal was made and you knew that everything in the background was just 2 teenagers having feelings for someone that they are allowed to have feelings for. But I won't lie, the big makeout session that happened before that reveal was made really creeped me out, because I was like, in my mind, you guys still think you're siblings and yet you still are rolling around on the ground having a lovely little time. That's just, no, you can't do that. I think the atmosphere of the read was way more intense than the other 2 books purely because there was a lot more going on in terms of the plot. It was sort of battle, reveal, battle, reveal, battle, reveal. So there was a lot more to sort of latch onto throughout the story than just character development as it was in the previous books, which meant the tension and the stakes always felt really, really high throughout this read. I will say though, the final scene with Raziel was a little bit of a letdown considering how much time and page length, you know, 2 books or 2 and a bit books worth of page length was dedicated to getting to this point, and then that whole battle, that whole confrontation was over really, really quickly. In fact, I actually like that in the show more was made of that confrontation between Clary and Raziel. And I think in this book it was just over too fast. As with the previous books, the writing was really, really clear, except it was really, really visual. I think in this book as well, I really was able to picture Idris and Alicante, and it honestly made the world feel a lot more real. And I knew that it made the world feel more real, and it was the writing that was doing that, because I didn't have a clear image in my mind of what Idris and Alicante looked like from the TV show. So I definitely will credit Cassandra Clare in this book especially to really creating a very visual world through her writing. But I will say that there were moments of the dialogue that did feel quite info dumpy, quite awkward. There was sort of overwriting, I think, done of some of those sort of historical moments where the characters would delve into their own past and everything that they were part of, you know, especially between Clary and her mother Jocelyn. There were a lot, I think, about Jocelyn's experience that we already knew, so I think that whole sort of spiel, that whole monologue could have been cut down quite significantly. The faster pace of this book was definitely welcome after how slow, I guess, the previous book or the previous 2 books were for me. I did like that it was very, very plot focused. I think the big bad was taken down a little bit too easily, given the fact that, you know, everybody or every adult out there was somehow struggling with the idea that Valentine was, you know, all powerful and they'd never be able to defeat him, but then he ended up being defeated in the space of like a chapter by two 17-year-olds, or I think Clary's like 15 or 16 in this book. So I did think it was a bit unrealistic that this big bad was defeated so easily, and that really does feed into the logic of this story. I think it's really, really ridiculous that in this entire world you got a bunch of grown-ass adults who just somehow are either unable to defeat these big bads like Valentine, who are grown-ass men, or are unable to sort of make decisions that would make sense, and then are somehow convinced by a 15-year-old girl standing up and doing a speech on a dais about her new rune abilities to, you know, fight for their lives and actually take a stand against Valentine. I thought it was all, the logic just wasn't really logicking, and I think part of that made my intrigue really wane towards the sort of end of the book because everything just felt a little bit stupid. But all in all, I did enjoy this book a lot more than the previous ones, as I said, and I'm so glad to sort of have this section of the series out of the way so I can jump into the next series, which will be the Infernal Devices, which is the Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess, and Clockwork Angel series. But you are going to have to wait for the next vlog in this series before you get to see my thoughts, because I have actually read the first book in that series, but I haven't read the second two. So it's going to be, I think, a bit more fun, a bit more interesting of an experience for me, because I won't know what's going on all the time. And then even with the fact that I read the first book, it was ages and ages and ages ago, so I don't remember a lot about it. So I am excited for this next part of this project to read something that I haven't really read before, or if I have, I haven't remembered it. But we'll save that for another vlog. So as for right now, this is the end of this vlog. Do let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this video, if you're looking forward to seeing more of this sort of thing, if you've read these books, what you thought of them, where you're up to in this series, all things Shadowhunter. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It is a super, super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!